Hey guys, Jacinth here, and the news just broke out. The new BRZ is here. The new 2022 model BRZ, and it's for the most part, it's mostly just an updated version of the last gen model. And if we're going by chassis codes, last gen was ZN6, so I guess this gen will be ZN7 by chassis code or generation code. I'm not sure if it's chassis or generation, but either way. So, what do I think of it? And what are some things that we haven't that hasn't been mentioned yet? So as some of you might know in real life or on Facebook or wherever, I own a AP1 Honda S2000, and I think this BRZ offers a very compelling alternative to that car. And I want to preface this by saying I am a fan of the old 86 BRZ. I did cross shop the two, but I ended up getting this 2000 because I got a better deal on it and better resale value and all that. So let's start off with design. I think the new BRZ does look pretty good. I think it looks fine. One thing that bothers me though is on the front bumper. I'll put a picture up here. You notice the side intakes, and I'm looking at my computer screen here, and for you guys it's here. The side intakes, they're just a bit too big. There's just a lot of black plastic going on the side, and I think that's completely unnecessary. If you look at the Honda S2000, which I'll put up here, you can see no fake, there's no unnecessarily like large black vents there. The two black vents on the car factory are blocked off from factory, but you can easily take out those plastics and put in brake ducts, for example. And but for BRZ, those vents are functional. I just think it'd be much better if they were body colored. Just remove the fakery. Just make it body colored and smooth in the black with the rest of the bumper. And that should be fairly simple to do. You just take those black things out, sand them down a bit to make them flush with the body, and paint them the body color. Now, I think moving on, looking at the rear, which I'll put a picture here. The BRZ looks a bit like a Hyundai Genesis. Now, that's not a bad thing. I think the Genesis looks like is a good looking car, but I just wish Subaru and Toyota came up with a more original rear end design. But that said, from this angle here, I think it looks pretty good. I think the way the rear end flares out looks much classier than the last generation. And the way the rear lights, kind of stick out past the fender, not the fender, but past the bodywork a little bit, does almost have like a Ferrari Roma appearance. And all in all, this car does feel a bit Ferrari-like. And hear me out. The front bumper, the way that the front grille is shaped into the front, is very reminiscent of a Ferrari Portofino. And the rear lights, if you look at it from the top, where you're not actually seeing the light design, but just the part of the rear lights that you can see from the top of the car, it does kind of remind you of a Ferrari Roma. So look at the Ferrari Roma here from the top. You can see how the rear lights kind of stick out past the body, and look at the BRZ, how the lights stick out past the rear body. And from a certain angle, it kind of looks like that, but that's not that big of a deal. So let's move on to the big party piece, and the biggest new news is the engine. We now have a 2.4 liter F824 naturally aspirated engine in the car. So I think a lot of people want to turbocharge like a F820 DIT turbo engine like in WRX. But you know what? I like this engine. I think it's a good fit. And honestly, a base model BRZ realistically won't have a turbo. That's not realistic. So I mean, there is still hope for a turbo model, but knowing Toyota and Subaru and how much we've been clamoring for a turbo BRZ or 86, it's probably not going to happen. But that's okay. We have a 2.4 liter engine, which means when we do boost it, it's going to have a lot more threshold for boost. And one thing no one's talked about yet is the fact that they showed the Dynograph. So if we look at Redline Reviews' video on the new BRZ, you can see in one screenshot he actually does show the interior of the car, and you can see a little Dynograph right here, I think. So let's zoom in on that Dynograph, and you can see the torque curve, the white line, is a lot more linear than before. And that's good news for us because in the last generation, the complaints about power weren't necessarily just about power, just horsepower or torque. It's that torque dip. The torque dip is what kind of uh, not ruined, but made the BRZ and the 86's power band seem much lower than it is. So there is still a little bit of a dip there, and maybe Subaru exaggerated this Dynograph to kind of mask the torque dip. But either way, with a bigger displacement engine, we now have 184 foot-pounds of torque according to Redline Reviews and 228 horsepower. So that's actually a very good horsepower number. To get to 230 horsepower in a standard FRS requires headers and a tune and an exhaust, and even then you would never reach near 184 foot-pounds of torque. So this is actually a very good sign for the new BRZ. And if you can see, and looking at the interior shot again, if you look at the red line, it looks like the red line is around 7,400 RPM. You can kind of see it's just a little bit before halfway between 7 and 8. So that's actually very good because one thing, as an RPM snob, as an S2000 owner, I love high RPM cars, and I was really afraid that this BRZ would have like an RPM of 6,800 or something stupid low like that. And it doesn't, which is great news. I think this bigger displacement engine with around the same red line is going to be a very fun experience, and it'll still make it feel a bit like an A86. Well, it's not going to be like an A86, but it's got a lot more torque now. It's got a good amount of horsepower, and the weight is still relatively low, around 2,800 pounds. So it is nearing S2000 weight, but it does have more torque than the S2000. So it should feel like a faster car, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I never would have said that about the last gen FRS. But this new BRZ could actually be a match for the FRS. Sorry, the S2000 on a track. It actually might be with a few adjustments. So I'm very excited for this, and I hope, and I'm glad that Subaru and Toyota are still bringing out new sports cars. Supra and Nissan with the 400Z, and now we have the new BRZ and soon the 86. And I'm really excited for when the 86 comes out, and I'll definitely do another video on that. But as for now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.